Welcome into NBA Now, presented today by Aura. They offer an all-in-one digital safety tool helping keep your information safe online from hackers and off the dark web. They're giving you a free 14-day trial of that tool when you head over to aura.com/chatsports. Tell you more about them later on in today's show. But it's all about trade rumors around the NBA as the market overall is beginning to slow down. But you know that we will keep you updated with everything going on here around the NBA. So subscribe for more free videos. YouTube.com/chatsportstv. We're past the 318,000 mark despite YouTube taking away subscribers from us. But we're going to keep growing. Hit that big red button and subscribe for all the latest on the NBA and the NFL. We begin with Kevin Durant and I think this is kind of indicative of the entire trade market right now. Standstill, slow, quiet, non-existent, all those different buzzwords describing the Kevin Durant trade situation at this point. The Nets have, understandably so, an incredibly high asking price. And they've also not given up hope yet of Durant rescinding his trade request. Here's what Zach Lowe of ESPN reported. Quote, several smart people around the league termed the very act of trading Durant impossible in conversations with ESPN. There was no way to approximate fair value. A player of Durant's caliber, with so many years locked in, has never before become available. The Nets are probably waiting for Durant's camp to realize that, and maybe for Durant to retract his trade request. The Nets have not given up on this scenario. Look, Zach's exactly right. The trade market for Durant is tricky, convoluted, and to a certain extent impossible. We can go back and look at the teams that have been linked, right? The Suns were the early favorite. Well, not anymore. These are the current next team odds for Kevin Durant. Brooklyn's your betting favorite. Miami Heat, the Boston Celtics, who had entered the sweepstakes, then it was reported, well, that offer was old and maybe not so much, so we're kind of all over the place there. Toronto is not open to moving Scotty Barnes right now. The Suns appear to be out of the race because they made the matching offer sheet for DeAndre Ayton, and they were light on assets anyway. I don't mind Memphis as a deep sleeper. The Heat might pivot towards a Donovan Mitchell trade if Boston's not going to move all of their pieces. There's no way to get the proper value for a player of Durant's caliber. For wherever you want to rank him, top 5 player in the NBA, if not top 3, top 2, top whatever. He's a premier star. You will never get the proper value back in a trade for Kevin Durant. And with 4 years left on his deal, at minimum, you could do the whole Ben Simmons 76ers thing and just we're going to wait, and maybe trade him later on. I do think there is a very real possibility that Durant just ends up back on Brooklyn for at least one more year. But I want to hear from you, the people. Will the Nets trade Kevin Durant this year? Y for yes, N for no. This is going to be our pinned comment on today's show. So if the ad break comes here on YouTube, perfect timing. Take advantage of it. Type in Y for yes or N for no at that pinned comment. From one Nets star to the other, Kyrie Irving, as things are even more quiet on Irving than they are Durant. In large part because what's the market for Kyrie? Again, we're talking about a top 15-ish player on the court, if not, bordering on top 10, but a, bottom 5 player in terms of sometimes being available and having the right headspace. And you guys know Kyrie, right? The Lakers remain linked to Irving, but no other team has really shown interest. And I think the Nets are waiting on Durant. Then a decision comes on Kyrie, which means there is a chance he stays in Brooklyn. Here's what Alex Schiffer of The Athletic said. Quote, I'm still skeptical he's a Net next season. Would it surprise me? No. He's from the area, and he has a home and a newborn there along with the rest of his family. But the vibe I got with the Nets was that last season was such a mess that they don't want to run it back unless significant changes are made. Which we kind of all, to a certain extent, saw coming because, like Kyrie and Durant, do whatever you want. And that just trickled down to the rest of the organization. They got rid of, I thought, a good coach for if we're being honest, one that Durant and Kyrie thought they could push around and bully to a certain extent. Irving, when he's on the court, is an awesome basketball player. But look at all the times and games he's missed the past couple years. He has been unavailable, and the best ability is availability, and that is not something Irving's offered. So will Kyrie play for the Nets this year? 1 for yes, they give him one more chance, or 0 for no, they go ahead and end things from that standpoint? Sound off for me in the comments section. I will say, if the Nets can simply run it back with Durant and Kyrie Irving, it's actually a pretty good squad. Royce O'Neal, TJ Warren, kind of your wingmen off the bench, but obviously Durant and Irving are stars. Joe Harris and Seth Curry are great sharpshooters. Who knows what you get out of Ben Simmons? That's talk about best ability being availability. That's always a big red flag there. And I don't mind Nick Claxton as your fifth starter at center, being that kind of rim rolling big man. So if the Nets can roll it back, they'll be among the better teams in the East if, Durant and Irving are actually locked in. Now, today's show is made possible by our friends over at Aura. They offer financial fraud protection, identity theft protection, online and device security for you and your whole family. If you're like most people, you do run the risk of your identity being compromised. After all my information is right here. God forbid this gets compromised, hacked, stolen. I'm in trouble. But Aura helps keep your identity safe online. Extensive monitoring of your personal information. And it is a free 14-day trial when you head over to aura.com/chatsports. You can even do a family plan if you got a wife and kids or a husband and kids. They'll take care of you. Aura.com/chatsports. Let's go to Donovan Mitchell. My boy Marshall Green may not be able to handle the back and forth between the Jazz and the Knicks. I'm worried it's going to break him mentally. The Knicks and Jazz have not talked about a Mitchell trade in over 2 weeks, according to Shams Charania, which, by the way, kind of already knew. It was kind of presented as new information, but it also, we know things have been quiet there. The Jazz are in no rush to make a deal. Mitchell has not demanded a trade at this point, and to the surprise of nobody, especially after the Rudy Gobert for all of the picks trade, the asking price is quite high right now for Donovan Mitchell. The alleged reported trade offer, there have been some different variations floating around out there, some involving Miles McBride. Knicks get Donovan Mitchell. Jazz get Quentin Grimes, Manuel Quickley, Obi Toppin. There had to be some salary filler in there too. And 6 first-round picks. The Knicks have, I believe, 8 tradable first-rounders, which is quite valuable, even if those picks, by the way, are probably not going to end up being lottery picks, which is why the Knicks are all over Donovan Mitchell. Think back to that organization. The last time they had a star guard of this caliber was Stephon Marbury? That's how, the very brief Linsanity run, of course, but that was not long enough to justify it. So, the Mitchell to Knicks trade makes a lot of sense. Yeah, there are defensive backcourt issues with Brunson and Mitchell, but you've also got a good, I think, defensive big man upside-wise in Mitchell Robinson. And Mitchell gives the Knicks something they've lacked for a very long time, actual star power. And you could package all those players, all those picks. What are the chances you get one guy close to Mitchell? Probably pretty low. But that does not mean the Jazz will eventually trade Donovan Mitchell. They could just keep him instead and maybe even wait to the trade deadline, whatever. Make your predictions. Where will Donovan Mitchell play this upcoming year? Jazz, Knicks, Heat maybe? Somewhere else? Make your predictions for me in the comments section. Now, tied into this kind of Mitchell trade buzz is the Julius Randle situation. Mark Stein reports again that if the Knicks land Donovan Mitchell, Julius Randle could head back to the Lakers. Now, Randle spent the first 4 years of his career in LA, and this would, of course, be part of some type of Russell Westbrook trade where Russ goes to the Knicks. They could potentially, probably would, buy him out, get off of Randle's long-term money to keep their cap flexibility for the upcoming salary cap jump down the road, which is a little bit trickier if you maintain Randle's hefty cap hit on your books. The reason why you're open to moving Randle is regression. One more game this past year, the points per game dropped off by 4, which is a fairly significant number. The rebounds dipped slightly, the assists per game dipped by almost a full one, and this is where things were problematic. The 3-point percentage from 41.1 to 30.8. That drop-off was significant. Randle did not play like the guy we saw in 2020 to 2021. He had regressed, and that is a significant red flag. So if you had to pick one of these two guys to put on your current team, Who would it be? JR for Julius Randle, RW for Russell Westbrook? There are some pros and cons to both, right? Randle is a better player right now, also tied to your organization for a longer period of time. Russell Westbrook he had a bad year last year, but he's also, you can get out of the deal quicker. So who would you rather have, JR or RW? The addition of adding Randle would be interesting to me because I'm very curious how Davis and Randle would pair together. Randle's a 4. Anthony Davis calls himself a 4, but in the current year of our Lord, 2022, he should probably play the 5. That's probably where he's at his best. Just let him be a center. If you want to have Randle come off the bench as like your 6th man to an extent, and then in crunch time roll out with LeBron, AD, I guess Lonnie Walker and Julius Randle, and God, why don't they have more shooters on this team? That would be fine, I guess, for LA. And y'all got to remember this for the Lakers side of it. That Russell Westbrook contract carries no value, really. And once he's off the books, it actually becomes a little bit trickier to add talent with the way the salary cap rules work. So if Mitchell does get traded, I actually don't hate that idea for LA, depending on what else they would have to give up to get out of that Russ contract. If trades happen, we'll break them down, so make sure you are subscribed, youtube.com/chatsportstv.